When I woke up, they told me I was the real daughter of the Qin family who had been switched at birth, but there is already a so-called fake heiress who has been raised in the family for over a decade. My family waits for me to wallow in self-pity and envy, resenting the unfairness of fate, sinking into an endless abyss of sorrow. But as I look at this brand new era, there is no war or hunger, no fear of death. For me, this is truly the best of times. When I woke up, my head throbbed as if it were about to split open. I reached up to hold it, feeling strange things flooding into my mind. For a moment, I didn't know who I was. My mind was a complete blank. Only when the commotion in my head finally subsided did I have the energy to look around at this world, both unfamiliar and yet strangely familiar. A sense of disconnection washed over me. I vaguely heard someone talking outside. Could she be faking it? A young man's voice chimed in. Pretending to be hurt so everyone feels sorry for her, and then they all blame Siyu. Brother Qin, you've watched Siyu grow up, he fan. Another clear, resonant male voice interrupted him. This is a family matter of the Qin family. You're overstepping. I have a marriage arrangement with Siyu, so of course I'm on her side. The young man's voice continued. Brother Qin, I don't care where this other sister of yours came from. Our He family only recognizes Siyu. I couldn't hear the rest of the conversation. I opened my eyes and stared at the blank white ceiling, beginning to wonder who I was. Qin Miaodong, this is my name. I remember the sensation of the bullet piercing my heart, the suffocation and unwillingness as I teetered on the brink of death. But I am definitely not Qin Miaodong, who survived the gunshot. This body feels unfamiliar when I move it. I am not this young. And although my hands have had calluses before, they are not the kind caused by obvious household chores. I don't know how long it had been when someone pushed the door open from outside and found me awake. I saw the faces of the people who had just been speaking outside the door. A handsome young man and a youth came into my view. Miaodong, you're awake, a clear voice sounded in front of her. I looked over, not speaking immediately, probably because I saw someone. An extra layer of memory surfaced in my mind. Perhaps I should call him brother. But I hesitated to speak, and the young man beside him grew impatient. Hey, how long are you going to keep pretending? I still didn't speak, staring at them for a long while until the young man sensed something was wrong and called for a doctor. Hospitals nowadays seem to have developed quite well. After examining me, the doctor in the white coat told the other person that I most likely have symptoms of temporary amnesia. That impatient young man has already left. And I don't want to see him either. Just the sight of him feels noisy. The young man sat down beside the hospital bed and said, Miaodong, it's me, your brother, Qin Huaishua. Do you still remember me? The doctor says you'll gradually remember. He told me about some recent events. The original owner of this body was the daughter of a wealthy family who had been maliciously switched at birth for over a decade. His biological sister, for over a decade. They had no idea the daughter they raised at home was an imposter. A very cliché plot, probably involving someone with ill intentions swapping the babies, and the biological daughter being sold to a remote mountain village, where she endured over a decade of hardship. It was only last year that Qin Miaodong heard from her adoptive parents that she had been bought from human traffickers. She went to great lengths to report it to the police, waited for the results, and finally found her biological parents. Unfortunately, they have spent over a decade raising an exceptionally outstanding daughter. Qin Miaodong was admitted to the hospital this time after a conflict with Qin Siyu, falling down the stairs and suffering a concussion. She is very sensitive. After more than a decade of hardship, a teenage girl with wounds all over her hands and body suddenly learns that she should have been living a life of such abundance. She harbors deep hostility toward the person who took her place, especially since she is not as beautiful, talented, or socially adept as the other. The other also has a fiancé, handsome and outstanding, and they look like a perfect match. Driven by jealousy born of inferiority and resentment, she is hostile toward Qin Siyu. However, the memories in my mind tell me that this time, when Qin Miaodong fell down the stairs, it was indeed Qin Siyu who pushed her. In such a situation, which concerns the fates of two girls, Qin Miaodong is filled with resentment and jealousy, while Qin Siyu is naturally anxious about her own identity. I looked at him and called out, "Brother, where are Mom and Dad?" Qin Huaishua fell silent for a moment. I knew, Qin Miaodong's memories told me, today was the day of Qin Siyu's piano competition. They went to watch the competition. along with the very noisy he fanned from earlier. They're coming to see you tonight, that was Qin Huaishua's reply. I won't say anything, Qin Huaishua said, Miaodong, both you and Siyu are my sisters, although what happened to you was because of her biological mother. Siyu truly knows nothing about it. Her biological mother passed away a few years ago. Mom and Dad have drafted a contract and will transfer 5% of the company's shares to you as compensation. Deep down, I remained calm, yet I couldn't help but feel sorrow for the girl who shared the name Qin Miaodong. The family she had desperately sought held only a limited amount of love for her. I don't know where she went or if she's even still alive, but I think it's a bit strange that I have her memories. Do you have that 5% of the shares? I looked up at Qin Huaishua. He paused. I continued, Qin Siyu has some too, maybe less, like 3%. Did you remember? I hummed in agreement and asked, where's my phone? Qin Huaishua handed me a small square device. I had seen how to use it in Qin Miaodong's memories. I said, I want to be alone for a while. Afterwards, Qin Huaishua left the hospital room. I picked up my phone, unlocked it from memory, and began searching for everything I wanted to know. It turned out that so many years had already passed. The era I existed in was completely over, becoming history. My country had finally grown through its hardships. Although every step of the past was not easy, we now stand tall in the world. With no one daring to look down on us, in this country, in this era, there is no invasion, no war, and no struggle for food and clothing, and I, Qin Miaodong, am but a grain of sand in the long river of history, without a single word to my name. For a long time in the past, I even went for ages without using my real name. One afternoon, I held my phone, tears streaming down my face as I stared at the screen. The scenes that had only ever appeared in my dreams had actually come true. For me, this is the best of times. Although I have the memories of another, Qin Miaodong, in my mind, I still feel unfamiliar with this world. I am filled with curiosity, lying in the hospital bed. It wasn't until my current parents appeared that I realized where the sour ache in my chest came from. It was the emotions of this body. She, or perhaps I, is unwilling to accept it and wants an answer. I think I understand her emotions. She simply wants a special kind of favor, one that doesn't require taking it from others. I looked at the Qin family parents, dressed in luxurious attire, with Qin Siyu in a splendid long gown following behind them. She is beautiful, or rather, she has been raised to be beautiful. Today, she is also dressed in her finest attire. I lift my gaze, looking at them with calm composure. Miaodong, the mother of this body, speaks up. What do you think? Very well, I said truthfully. After all, I am not the Qin Miaodong they know. Once I realized my identity, I naturally understood that even if my temperament changed drastically, they would only think I had psychological or mental issues, so there's no need for me to act like the previous Qin Miaodong. They seemed surprised by my tone, or perhaps they thought I was bowing to them. My current father looked at the bandage wrapped around my head and put on a show by saying, this time, I'll let it slide. If you cause trouble again, don't blame your mother and me for not caring about you. I recalled my own father, who was a refined scholar. Although he could be quite authoritative at times, he always made sure to persuade others with reason. Without comparison, I wouldn't have realized how much better Mr. Qin was at being a father than others. I hummed in acknowledgement, can't be bothered to say anything more. Instead, it was the one who was dressed so splendidly and beautifully. The one who had taken over the nest, who showed a flicker of panic in her eyes. As she was about to leave, she even glanced back at me. I met her gaze, and in her eyes, there might have been a hint of provocation that even she herself didn't notice. She looked down on me, yet at the same time, she was wary of me. After waking up, I spent a few relatively fulfilling days, almost always glued to my phone. In this era, something called the internet has emerged, which I consider one of the greatest inventions in the course of human development. Almost all the information I want to know can be obtained from it. War has not disappeared from this world, but my country has enjoyed peace for a long time. After the bandages and gauze on my head were removed, I was discharged from the hospital. I was taken back to a house that could be described as exquisite, brought there by Qin Huaishua. He said, Dad is on a business trip today, and Mom has plans with friends. You should rest well today, and tomorrow you have to go back to school. Even if your foundation is weak, you still need to work hard to catch up. even after being discharged from the hospital. The fact that no family members came to greet them doesn't seem like a family to me. Qin Huaishua's words seem to imply one thing: the Qin family only needs people who can present themselves well in public. This pattern closely resembles that of a close friend's family I recall. Her family is prominent, but the women are all raised to be refined ladies, and the men appear to be elegant gentlemen on the surface. However, in such prominent families, it's not uncommon for them to be gilded on the outside but rotten within. Qin Miaodong has been back for less than a year, and the Qin family has arranged a new school for her. She's now in her first year of high school. The current admission system is quite different from what I know, and there are also many subjects. My memory tells me that after a semester of high school life, Qin Miaodong chose subjects that lean more towards the humanities. I returned to my room and carefully went through her various books. The next day, the driver took me to school. Qin Siyu and I attended the same school, but she was in the top class, consistently ranking at the top, which stood in stark contrast to Qin Miaodong. Even at the same school, we didn't take the same car to go to school. I made my way to my classroom from memory, and as soon as I stepped inside, the once noisy room fell silent for a moment. Qin Miaodong didn't actually have that strong of a presence in the class. It's just that her current status is quite awkward. Publicly, she is known as the child adopted by the Qin family. Due to the engagement between Qin Siyu and He Fan only recognizes Qin Siyu. But the He family may not necessarily feel the same way if Qin Siyu's identity were to be exposed. The He family might not look favorably upon her, but they certainly wouldn't think highly of Qin Miaodong either, so the Qin family chose to preserve the marriage contract in this matter, which is to protect their interests, but the biological child becoming an adopted one is, in essence, also a disregard for Qin Miaodong. Qin Miaodong yearned for family affection, yearned for favoritism, but this home had none. I realized that I was a relatively out-of-place presence in this class. This was a private high school, and many of the students came from well-off families, with the Qin family being a rather prominent wealthy household. As an adopted daughter, I naturally carried some gossip with me. I've missed a few days of classes due to this hospital stay, and I have no idea what version of the story has been circulating from their mouths. I lowered my gaze, letting it rest on the desk. Qin Miaodong's handwriting isn't particularly neat, and I'll have to imitate her style for a while. Qin Miaodong, someone called my name, and then a shadow fell over me. I heard you were in the hospital. I looked up and saw a young man with his hair dyed red. I realized my gaze had shifted from surprise to something indescribable. I couldn't appreciate it at all. I knew who he was, a wealthy second-generation admirer of Qin Siyu, named Lin Haosheng. Something wrong. I knew the original owner of this body wasn't close to him either. I heard you wanted to push Qin Siyu down, but ended up accidentally falling down the stairs yourself. Or did you fall on purpose? He spoke bluntly, probably not considering whether the real Qin Miaodong, if she were sitting in the classroom at this moment, could withstand such an interrogation. I met his gaze and suddenly smiled. Yes, I argued with her, couldn't win, and decided to fall headfirst down the stairs to frame her. So what? Lin Haosheng didn't expect my answer. And neither did anyone else. He was taken aback for a moment. I said, is there anything else? After a long pause, he managed to squeeze out a sentence. How dare you, an adopted daughter, adopted daughter. I leaned back slightly, giving the red-haired boy in front of me a once-over before sneering. What authority do you have to demand justice for Qin Siyu? At this age, young men are the most easily provoked, eager to defend their beloved, yet also the most vulnerable to having their insecurities exposed. And sure enough, he got angry. Are you trying to get yourself killed? As soon as he finished speaking, someone walked in from outside. It was the homeroom teacher. After her gaze swept around the classroom, Lin Haosheng also returned to his seat with a look of indignation. I began to study in the classroom of this era. I flipped through the history book over and over again, finding the history I was familiar with, as well as the distant past and the many events that followed. Compared to textbooks in the humanities, science books appear much newer, very lopsided in subjects. I know that the development of this society is no longer something my once barren imagination could depict. Qin Miaodong's memories can tell me a lot of information. But for the things she doesn't know, I naturally need to explore on my own. For an entire week, I immersed myself in knowledge. I became aware of the indifference of those around me, and from Qin Miaodong's memories, I found a word to describe my current situation: school bullying. The entire class isolated me, and the teachers turned a blind eye. That's probably how it was. For a week, I've been processing the emotions brought by this body. Sometimes I can't even tell if it's me who's sad or if it's her. I wonder if the other Qin Miaodong is still alive, but I never find an answer. My interactions with the Qin family have always been quite distant. Through studying the law, I have come to realize that I am not listed on the Qin family's household register. I am merely a foster daughter who is being raised based on blood ties. My change in character was noticed by them. Now, my father gave a token compliment, saying I look a bit more presentable. In his eyes, perhaps my lack of ambition and competitiveness is already a significant improvement. Qin Siyu spoke up at the right moment. Dad, I heard that Miaodong and Lin Haosheng aren't getting along very well. Should I say something to them? Qin Siyu has a very good relationship with that group of rich second-generation kids. After all, they're in the same circle. But as soon as she finished speaking, Qin Ye's brows furrowed again. Qin Yi, my current father. I opened my mouth. Dad, I want to live on campus. Qin Siyu's previous remark was brushed aside, and Qin Ye's tone grew stern. Why would you want to live on campus all of a sudden? Isn't it good enough at home? In his eyes, it was naturally very good. Feudal patriarch. In modern terms, this is how such people should be described. They simply cannot see the problems. I lowered my gaze and said, my foundation is too weak. I want to spend more time studying and strive to improve my grades as soon as possible. Qin Yi did not agree to me living on campus, but I know he will eventually agree. Qin Siyu would probably be thrilled to have me stay far away from the Qin family. Lately, I've been quite enthusiastic about going out and getting to know this new world, living under the same roof with the Qin family. I believe they could sense the changes in Qin Miaodong, but they all attributed this difference to my submission to them. I also mentioned the matter of living on campus to Qin Huaishua. He couldn't understand. If you want to improve your academic performance, we can hire a tutor for you at home. There's no need to live on campus. In the rich young master's mind, my actions were nothing short of asking for trouble, or perhaps there's still a hint of willfulness. I looked at him and said, I want to live on campus, if my grades don't change. We can talk about it then. Can you go and talk to Mom and Dad for me? In my memory, this was probably the first time this sister, who had returned home, made a request to Qin Huaishua. Qin Huaishua fell silent for a moment before replying, I can't guarantee it'll work. I successfully moved into the school dormitory. Although Qin Yi is authoritarian, he values his eldest son greatly. It's no exaggeration to say that Qin Huaishua, who has already graduated from university and started working at the company, is his pride. I don't know what Qin Huaishua said, but he arranged for me to move into a dormitory, and I even got a single room. I'm very satisfied. The isolation from those around me seemed rather childish in my eyes. After all, my mind was not truly that of a 16 or 17-year-old girl. The behavior of my peers struck me as full of immaturity and naivety, led by Lin Haosheng. A few wealthy young men often engaged in petty actions, such as knocking my books to the ground and offering a half-hearted apology, or placing small insects on my desk. Although it's not a big deal, complaining might not necessarily lead to a result that satisfies me. So one noon, when Lin Haosheng was sleeping with his head on the desk and felt something was off, he opened his eyes to find a small black snake poking its head out from under the desk, flicking its tongue at him. And the whole classroom erupted in excitement. Lin Haosheng's scream came first, followed by the entire classroom erupting in shrieks. I sat in my seat, watching the terrified classmates around me with satisfaction, a smile in my eyes. For a moment, my gaze met Lin Haosheng's. The little black snake disappeared somewhere amid the chaotic screams. Later, Lin Haosheng confidently told the homeroom teacher that I had released the snake, because I had remained too calm at the time. After hearing his words, the homeroom teacher looked at me and asked, Qin Miaodong, do you have anything to say? I shook my head. Teacher, it wasn't me. If not you, then who? Lin Haosheng said with certainty. You're the only one in the whole class sitting properly in your seat. I explained in a calm tone. I just happen to not be afraid of snakes. How is that possible? Lin Haosheng's tone was very agitated, and he declared confidently, it must be you deliberately seeking revenge on me. I laughed. Why would I want revenge on you? What have you ever done to me? Lin Haosheng stood there, stiff-necked and unable to say a word for a long time. I turned to the homeroom teacher and said, "Teacher, this is no small matter after all. Why not check the classroom surveillance footage?" Surveillance footage, the new tools I've learned in my understanding of the new era. It's quite a good thing. However, the surveillance footage only went back one day, and it couldn't identify who put the snake in. Instead, in the footage from the day before, I saw that when I wasn't in the classroom, a few people led by Lin Haosheng gleefully placed several caterpillars on my desk. I watched the surveillance footage expressionlessly, while the teachers and administrators around me looked at me with strange expressions. Lin Haosheng was visibly uncomfortable. At this age, what boy doesn't care about face? It's just a matter of degree. After being frightened by the snake, his psychological defenses are now incredibly weak. As for the surveillance footage from this morning, it appears that before anyone entered the classroom, a black snake crawled in through the door gap, passed by several desks, and accurately made its way into Lin Haosheng's desk. Watching the surveillance footage, Lin Haosheng felt his hair stand on end. He had been in such close proximity to the snake for several hours, his face turned pale with fear. That very day, the young master took leave and went home, reportedly so frightened that he developed a fever. That night, many students were absent from the classroom, likely afraid that another snake might crawl out from somewhere. After that, it became a matter of dispute between the students' parents and the school. The school organized a snake and insect prevention campaign. None of this had anything to do with me. At night, I returned to the dormitory, where a desk lamp was lit on the table. And I studied the lessons I had missed. After a while, a rustling sound was heard, and a pure black little snake slowly crawled up the lamp to my wrist, flicking its tongue, but it was gentle and cute. I chuckled softly and tapped its little head. After that day, I felt much more at peace, even though Lin Haosheng and the others still came to class on time. But when watching the surveillance footage, his parents were also present. Lin Haosheng's behavior of openly encouraging others to bully a female classmate made both parents frown. His family, both parents are ambitious in their careers, with the mother being even more formidable than the father. He learned his lesson, but I never got an apology, and neither did Qin Miaodong. After the monthly exam, my grades have indeed improved compared to before. It's just not enough yet. During my time at school, I didn't see Qin Siyu very often. But she was quite a prominent figure on campus, and I constantly heard news about her. What competitions did you participate in? What awards did you win? Or what happened between He Fan and me? Or the rumors between her and me? I don't feel like going back to the Qin family on weekends either. It's not hard to find an excuse not to go back. I spent money on tickets and visited all the various exhibitions in the city. I saw many things left behind by history, and even found familiar names in some records, but there were also many people like me, who passed through history without leaving a single word, like small streams merging into the sea. Even now, I still carry complex emotions. I am fortunate to have witnessed the prosperity of China. Even walking through places I've been before, I often feel a sense of absurdity, as if the world has changed beyond recognition, in less than a century. The changes that have taken place on this land are beyond what I could have imagined back then. The end of the semester came quickly, and I submitted my application to change majors to the homeroom teacher. The current college entrance examination system also seems to have undergone changes. After much thought, I still chose physics, chemistry, and biology. The homeroom teacher looked at my report card and said, "Miaotong, your grades show that you have a greater advantage in the humanities subjects." Yes, for more than half of the semester, I managed to become the top student in the worst class. My grades in history and politics even placed me among the top in the entire grade, and the same went for English. In the second year of high school, classes would be reorganized based on academic performance, and I was very likely to be transferred to another class. Although my performance in science subjects has significantly improved, my homeroom teacher still doesn't have high hopes for me. She earnestly advised me, saying that girls who excel in liberal arts might face a considerable gap when switching to science. I did not change my mind. This matter still reached the ears of the Qin family. Qin Yi did not agree with my decision to change subjects. In his view, if both Qin Siyu and I studied liberal arts and attended a decent university, it would bring great prestige when it came to marriage discussions in the future. Qin Siyu and I are both excluded from the company's inheritance rights. Unfortunately, I don't listen to him." Qin Yi was furious. He said, "You clearly excel more in liberal arts than in science, so why insist on studying something you're not good at? With your current grades, you could get into a decent university for the college entrance exam. What if you switch to science and end up failing miserably?" I am very calm. I can learn it well. I know why he is so angry, not because of my performance in science subjects, but because he despises anyone in this family who dares to defy him. He seems to be both angry and amused by my response, but just then, my current mother quietly interjects, "Huaishua has always been good at science since he was young, perhaps Miaodong might also." As I said this, I noticed Qin Siyu's face turn a bit pale. The Qin family's favoritism is evident in every aspect. They, including Qin Huaishua, usually side more with Qin Siyu, which is what she relies on the most, but blood ties cannot be changed. I don't care about the Qin family, so I don't pay any extra attention to the intimacy they take for granted. For example, the expensive clothes and jewelry in Qin Siyu and Qin Huaishua's rooms. I don't care about them, and even the previous Qin Miaodong didn't care either. She is a girl who wants love, but I have passed the time of pursuing it. I insist on studying science. There are benefits to being overlooked in this household. After my insistence, the school arranged a new class for me. Everyone is busy during the summer vacation. The Qin parents were busy with business and social engagements. Qin Huaishua was occupied with various tasks related to taking over the company, and Qin Siyu was attending classes for various musical instruments and spending time with Yifan. I don't understand why, in this day and age, teenagers of 16 or 17 are bound by a marriage contract. Perhaps they don't see it as a constraint. I spent my days buried in my room studying. In this era, accessing information is fast and simple. As long as I am determined, I can find all kinds of tutoring courses online. The knowledge I once wanted to explore but had to give up due to various limitations now comes flooding toward me like a tide. I studied desperately when I felt dizzy from studying. I walked out of my room and headed downstairs, just in time to run into Qin Siyu, who had just returned. She was dressed up as usual today, her entire outfit looking expensive, her makeup exquisitely beautiful. When our eyes met, she paused for a moment, then a look of disdain flickered in her eyes. I had no desire to engage with her and was about to step aside to pass by. "Qin Miaodong," I heard her call out to me. "Do you think being the biological child makes you so special?" Similar words seemed to have been heard by the previous Qin Miaodong as well. I looked at her in confusion, wanting to hear what else she had to say. "In our circle, someone as rustic as you can never fit in," she said slowly. "You've been back for so long. Have you made any friends from this circle? They all look down on you." She attempted to break through my defenses with such sharp and bitter words. I lowered my gaze to look at her. "So what?" Qin Siyu didn't see any panic or resentment on my face. She probably felt like she had punched cotton. "You know, families like ours will only arrange marriages with those of equal social standing in the future. Someone like you, who can't even be brought into the open, will probably end up being married off by dad to some mediocre man." She thought she was threatening me with the most terrifying and tragic fate. I felt sorrow. "You're only in your teens. Yet you've already entrusted your future to family and a man. Don't you find that tragic?" I asked her. After hearing my words, she suddenly laughed, as if mocking my naivety. Qin Siyu said, "Do you know that my starting point is the finish line that many people could never reach no matter how hard they try in their entire lives? Did you ever dare to dream of a life like this before?" I understood. She was clear-headed, or perhaps, she maintained a relative clarity amidst the murkiness. Knowing exactly what she wanted, I cannot tell her that the days of my youth were far more extravagant than they are now. Although life back then lacked the convenience brought by today's technology, I was raised with every need attended to, never having to worry about my own future, until I saw the backbone of the nation being crushed by the mountains amidst the flames of war. At this moment, I clearly realized that my thoughts could never align with Qin Siyu's, so I said, "Then I wish you can always hold on to the kite string in your hand now." Throughout the entire summer, I have been studying the knowledge from textbooks, studying this world, and studying the era I now find myself in. Despite having the memories left behind by the other Qin Miaodong, it is undeniable that her understanding of the world is, to some extent, outdated. Her misfortunes and regrets can no longer be remedied. The only thing I can do is to strive to become better. Together with her, my presence in the Qin family is not particularly strong. Qin Siyu might appreciate my tactfulness, but my current parents think I'm not presentable enough. As for Qin Huaishua, my so-called brother, he can still spare a little of his limited patience to ask about my daily life. When school started, I breathed a sigh of relief. I moved to the school without delay and buried myself in my studies in the new class. In this class, I felt a slight difference. No isolation, no teasing, and no mockery. At first, my classmates' gaze held a sense of novelty, but later it became ordinary again. Qin Miaodong, are you some kind of monster? How can someone score dozens of points higher on the midterm than on the monthly exam? My deskmate howled in disbelief. Yes, I even have a deskmate now. My deskmate is a very lively girl. She is amazed by my dedication to studying and the rapid progress I've made in science subjects. It's not just her, the teachers feel the same way. I vaguely remember that the new homeroom teacher also gave me some words of advice while looking at my grade report, under the stereotype that girls might face some difficulties in science subjects, especially when grades speak for themselves. My humanities grades before the end of my first year of high school were indeed far better than my science grades. In other words, they believed I was narrowing my path. I have to admit that among all the subjects, I still love history the most. And I am passionate about experiencing the changes of the times and the life we live today, but I still remember the regrets from my past life with like-minded friends. If our nation had long had good teachers, why would we have needed to cross the seas? If we had possessed great skills that day, our compatriots would not have had to suffer, and foreign powers would never have dared to set foot on this land. Be prepared for danger in times of peace. This is the lesson we should have learned. My aspirations do not lie in this direction. The entire year of my sophomore year of high school passed by in a flash. It was a remarkable year. As my academic performance climbed into the top 10 of my grade, this was a scene that left everyone astonished. The teacher who had once advised me that the humanities were more advantageous than the sciences quietly fell silent. The humanities teachers were envious of my grades in the liberal arts subjects. They came to inquire, but were all turned away by my current science teachers. Even if I wanted to transfer back now, it's unlikely the teachers would let me go. Although it's a private high school, not all the students come from wealthy families. Many of my classmates come from well-off, middle-class backgrounds. In comparison, the Qin family I belong to can indeed be considered a wealthy household. Qin Yi was quite satisfied with my achievements, but I refused when he asked me to attend a certain banquet. I knew exactly what kind of event it was. He was beginning to assess my worth. Among those of suitable social standing, he was selecting someone who could be beneficial to the Qin family's business. Qin Huaishuo remained single precisely because Qin Yi was also evaluating the daughters of other families. My rebellious nature displeased him, so he cut off my funds. A father who had raised his daughter for less than 2 years was now acting like an autocratic ruler, a fact I found utterly absurd. He probably expected me to bow my head to him in order to return to a life of luxury, while also forbidding the Qin family from providing me with any financial support. He likely forgot that this daughter, who had returned home less than 2 years ago, had never truly experienced the so-called life of luxury. I may be enchanted by the present era, but I never indulge in money and fame. For someone like me, who is about to come of age, there are simply too many ways to make money in this era. The most direct and suitable method for a student like me is probably tutoring. Coincidentally, this school is never short of wealthy people. The Qin family can't help me, so I can go find someone else. Connections are indeed very important. My class monitor said she found a student for me who isn't short on money. As long as I tutor them, the pay is quite substantial. The parents are very generous. The class monitor is very nice. Her family is in the real estate business, so her background must be quite good. I don't know exactly which social class her family belongs to, but I've never seen anyone around who would want to offend her. I gladly accepted her kindness. When I arrived at the tutoring student's house at the agreed time, I saw a huge villa estate, much larger than the Qin family's. It was a very extravagant style. I've grown accustomed to my surroundings, so I walked in without changing my expression, only to see Lin Haosheng lounging like a lord on the sofa. His reaction was bigger than mine, as if he had stepped on a snake. He jumped up. Qin Miaodong, What are you doing at my house? So it's this young master. I chuckled. Classmate Lin, it's been a long time. Let me reintroduce myself. I am Qin Miaodong. And I am also the private tutor your family hired for you. After that, how Lin Haosheng argued with his guardian to change tutors was no longer within my consideration. Anyway, in the end, Lin Haosheng reluctantly sat down beside me. Clearly, his resistance had failed. The young master glared at me fiercely. Don't think that just because my mother likes you, you can do whatever you want, believe it or not. I'll have you kicked out soon. I chuckled lightly. Try me. He was about to explode with anger. Lin Haosheng really had a way with words that was hard to swallow. He would often say things like, "Didn't the Qin family adopt you? Why do you still have to work part-time?" I didn't react much to his words, still focusing on his grades. Lin Haosheng's math was so bad that I was left speechless. The only subjects he could be said to excel in were Chinese and English. Take the money, do the job. I am well aware of this. I need to help Lin Haosheng get on his feet. His mother paid too much. I paid for my senior year tuition myself. During the summer vacation of my sophomore year, I didn't return to the Qin family. Qin Yi was authoritarian enough to forbid anyone from helping me. I tried many part-time jobs over the summer. Some were highly rewarding, and I earned a lot. Later, I also applied for a scholarship at school. The tuition at this private high school is expensive, but the scholarship amount is also quite substantial. I have no issues with my living situation. After the first monthly exam of senior year, Lin Haosheng's parents were very satisfied with my tutoring results. I received a considerable payment and continued to tutor Lin Haosheng. Of course, he wasn't my only client, but he is my living advertisement. Lin Haosheng's improvement in grades led several parents of his close friends to contact me. But there were many scheduling conflicts. Initially, it was one-on-one tutoring, but later, they simply started attending together. Only Lin Haosheng still receives one-on-one tutoring. I have to give his mother some face. The children of wealthy families are indeed difficult to manage. They don't care about their grades at all. The only thing that can make them care is that innate sense of competition. When one person makes progress, the others are gradually pushed to move forward as well. I just couldn't stick with tutoring for long. As the school later arranged for me to participate in competitions, other matters will have to be put on hold for now. Learning is the primary task of students. I see my ranking on the school honor roll moving higher and higher. The label on me is no longer the Qin family's adopted daughter, but Qin Miaodong. Time passed bit by bit, and my name reached the top, not only in the whole school, but also in the entire city. My grades are among the top, as the college entrance exam approached. Some classmates around me seemed much more relaxed, as their families had already paved a smooth path for them. I heard that Qin Siyu will be studying abroad with Yifan. Upon hearing this news, out of a sense of responsibility toward my former employer, I ran into Lin Haosheng and offered him a few words of comfort, encouraging him to focus on preparing for the college entrance exam. However, Lin Haosheng stared at me for a long time, stammering, you, without managing to say anything meaningful. He even seemed a bit embarrassed and angry, perhaps because my words had struck a nerve. After the college entrance exam, I rented a small apartment outside. One day, I suddenly received a call from Qin Huaishua. He asked me over the phone, "When are you planning to come home?" I paused for a moment. "Is there something you need?" Qin Huaishua asked me. "How long are you going to stay angry with mom and dad? Your college entrance exam results will be out soon. After that, the family will hold a celebration banquet for you and see you. For the next few years of university, are you really going to rely on part-time work to support yourself?" He weighed the pros and cons for me, saying that as long as I lowered my head and admitted my mistake, this matter would be over. Or rather, it had already passed. My grades provided the answer. On the day the college entrance exam results were released, I refreshed the page several times but couldn't see my own score. As expected, after that, my phone became busy. Not only the admissions teachers and senior year homeroom teachers, but even the Qin family's phone calls. This time even Qin Yi personally contacted me. I guess some admissions calls must have reached the Qin family. The emergency contact information provided upon enrollment likely includes theirs. I don't know what my ranking is, but it's clearly not bad, unfortunately. There is only myself on my household registration now. Qin Yi suggested that I choose a school from the first tier, and for the major, I should follow his advice. He said it would be best for me to choose law or finance, and foreign languages would also be a good option. Before I could make a choice, the results were announced. Provincial top scorer. I am not surprised. I have put in a considerable amount of effort over a long period for this result. Whatever outcome I achieve now is the fruit of my hard work. After politely declining many admissions offers, I finally chose the school I had my heart set on. However, when the news reached the Qin family, Qin Yi flew into a rage. You're a girl, why not go to any other university? Why must you go to the National University of Defense Technology? The Qin family is in business. A circle that has little to do with my choices. Not only does Qin Yi not understand, but my current mother, Ms. Lin Yu, doesn't understand either. On her well-maintained face, disapproval and an unfamiliar worry appeared as she said, Miaodong, this field is too exhausting for a girl, you don't need to choose such a path. Qin Huaishua frowned. What on earth are you thinking? Even Qin Siyu showed a puzzled expression on her face. I could only say, I know what I'm doing, the path I'm walking has never changed. I still remember that after I was admitted, the school was shocked for quite a while. In fact, the school's results that year were quite impressive. The students I tutored all made significant progress, especially Lin Haosheng. He got into a very good university, and from what his mother said, they plan to arrange for him to go into politics. It's hard to imagine that someone who used to be so reckless has now started to become more steady and reliable. I attended Lin Haosheng's college celebration banquet. What surprised me was that he didn't invite Qin Siyu, or rather, Qin Siyu didn't come. He put on the suit and looked somewhat presentable, but his expression seemed a bit off. I raised my glass to congratulate him on his admission. Congratulations. Lin Haosheng stared at me without moving, so I lowered my head to glance at my outfit. Although it wasn't a big brand, it was a smoky blue qipao that I loved. And I thought I was dressed quite appropriately. What's wrong? Lin Haosheng no longer spoke with that fiery tone. After hesitating for a long while, I finally heard the words, I'm sorry, from him. I was wrong before. Thank you for your help over the past year. The young master probably isn't good at apologizing. His face was flushed as he spoke, looking a bit nervous. I chuckled. I'll accept the apology. But there's no need for thanks. If you want to thank someone, thank your mother for trusting me and offering such a high hourly rate. After all, I'm getting paid to do this job. Lin Haosheng seemed like he still wanted to say something, but someone came over to greet him, an elder of his. I smiled and didn't interrupt them. The Qin family finally realized that I probably don't care about their wealth and influence, and when it comes to choosing my future path, I don't take advice from any of them. Qin Yi once again made a harsh remark, saying he'd wait for me to regret it and come back begging him. I have no idea where his confidence comes from. I'll be going to school after summer vacation, university in this era. Over the past 2 years, I've fully adapted to modern life and learned a great deal. In the past, I could never have imagined what the world would be like today. After starting university, my contact with the Qin family became even less frequent, and I rarely went back even during holidays. That place was never Qin Miaodong's home, and it certainly isn't mine now. How can a place where you feel no sense of belonging be called a home? My college life was busy, yet fulfilling and joyful. I met many new friends and learned a lot of new things. After completing my undergraduate studies, I continued on to graduate school. During this time, I heard that Qin Siyu and He Fan got married. However, I did not attend their wedding, as I was participating in a closed project with my advisor at the time and didn't have my phone with me. By the time I checked my phone again, their wedding had already been over for several days. Qin Yi was still angry, but he couldn't control me. When I was about to graduate from my master's program, I received a call from Qin Huaishua. He said, I'm getting married on the 16th of next month. Will you come? He is almost 30 years old, so it's normal for him to get married. I heard the bride is a well-matched young lady from a wealthy family, and she has been in a relationship with Qin Huaishua for 3 years. Qin Huaishua probably learned his lesson and came to inform me more than a month in advance. Of course, I can't promise that, I said. If there's no conflict in my schedule, I'll attend. I recall the scene when I woke up in this era, and to this day, I still remember that I have no right to let go on behalf of the former Qin Miaodong. Moreover, from my perspective, I do not agree with such family values. Soon, I will be pursuing my PhD. Upon learning that I was going home to attend the wedding, my advisor frowned and went to submit an application. When I returned, I was accompanied by 2 bodyguards. Although they were dressed in plain clothes, their demeanor was hard to conceal. At Qin Huaishua's wedding, I saw many familiar faces. Some of them were still living a carefree life, while others had already married and started families. When I appeared, some of them didn't even recognize who I was. However, when their gazes fell on my face and Qin Huaishua's, they would lower their heads in surprise and whisper among themselves, "My appearance hasn't changed much, but since this body of mine and Qin Huaishua are, after all, biological siblings, it's only natural that there are similarities in our looks, especially since Qin Huaishua is 185 centimeters tall, and I also reach a height of 175 centimeters. In contrast, Qin Siyu's figure appears much more petite, and her facial features bear even less resemblance to the Qin family. Rumors always have a way of spiraling in absurd directions, such as people already discussing whether I or Qin Siyu is the biological daughter. However, given that she has been the one in the spotlight all these years, more people tend to believe that I am Qin Ye's illegitimate child. As there would be no need for the Qin family to adopt another daughter when they already have both a son and a daughter, no matter what others speculate, I'm actually not very concerned about the Qin family's affairs. When I met Qin Huaishua and his new wife, I still gave them wedding gifts and blessings. Qin Huaishua's expression looked quite complicated when he saw me. His gaze swept over the 2 guards following behind me, and he said softly, "It seems that if I, as your brother, don't send you an invitation in advance, you won't come back." I remained silent, as that was indeed the case. He probably already realized that the path I took was different from what they had always believed. I don't have much sense of responsibility or belonging toward the Qin family. Qin Huaishua asked, "Are you going to say hello to Mom and Dad?" "Wait a moment," I said. I never expected to run into Lin Haosheng here. He has indeed matured and become more stable than before. After graduation, he embarked on a career in politics, and with the support of his family, he hasn't made any missteps, so his future looks very promising. "Qin Miaodong," he called out to me, his face showing a hint of awkwardness. "It's been a long time. How have you been lately?" Memories of Lin Haosheng churned in my mind, and I found it quite difficult to connect the refined man before me with the person who once threatened me in the classroom, asking if I wanted to die. I nodded. "Good, and you?" He chuckled. "I'm doing well." After a moment, he asked me, "How long will you stay this time after coming back?" I replied, "I'm leaving tomorrow. There's still a pile of data in the lab waiting to be verified." A look of disappointment seemed to flash across Lin Haosheng's face, and after a moment, I heard him chuckle softly. "You're really a busy person these days. I can't even get in touch with you normally." I don't deny that sometimes I do reply to others' messages a bit slowly. Just as I was speaking, Lin Haosheng's mother walked over. She had been something of a mentor to me, so I greeted her. "Auntie, it's been a long time." Lin Haosheng's mother still appeared to be a dignified and elegant woman. She smiled at me with a gentle curve in her eyes. "Is that Miaodong? You've grown so beautiful now. Do you have a boyfriend? Does our Haosheng have a chance?" As soon as she said this, Lin Haosheng was stunned. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I paused for a moment, then chuckled lightly. "Auntie, I noticed many young girls sneaking glances at Lin Haosheng." Lin Haosheng said, "Don't mind my mom, she's just joking. She's been teasing everyone lately, making me seem like some unsellable product." This little episode was just a common pleasantry at Qin Huaishua's wedding. After attending the wedding, I went to meet Qin Ye's parents, unexpectedly. There was a young man standing beside them. From Qin Ye's introduction, I could roughly guess what was going on. I said, "I'm leaving tomorrow." Qin Yi frowned. "Why the rush? You're going to school, not being bought out by it." Lin Yu said from the side, "This is the 3rd son of the Li family, a friend of your brother's. Why don't you young people get to know each other?" I chuckled, suddenly recalling a certain senior who complained about being forced into blind dates when he went home for the holidays. "No need to get acquainted, and no need to introduce me to potential marriage partners," I said calmly. "If someone wants to marry me now, their immediate family members within 3 generations have to pass a political background check. Can you accept that?" I paid no attention to how angry the couple was. As I was about to leave, I saw Qin Siyu and He Fan in the hallway. The married life of this childhood sweethearts wasn't as sweet as I had imagined. They were having an argument, with He Fan trying to leave and Chin Siyu trying to stop him. I heard He Fan's voice saying, "Do you know how strange those people at the table looked at me when they mentioned that Qin Huaishua and Qin Miaodong look more like siblings?" Chin Siyu's voice sounded weary. "Didn't you already know that from the start? Are you feeling awkward now because you see how beautiful Qin Miaodong has become, or is it because of her current status?" The sound abruptly ceased. I walked out without changing my expression, followed by my guards. I didn't look at their expressions, nor was there any need to. I could still faintly hear their argument as I walked away. After attending Qin Huaishua's wedding, I returned to school and continued to immerse myself in my research. I wasn't very concerned with outside matters. During my doctoral studies, the only people I usually communicated with were my advisor and the senior students. Everyone's hair was equally thinning. Once again, news about the Qin family surfaced online. A piece of land acquired by the Qin family has run into trouble. Not only was a large sum of money invested, but workers were also injured. It's unclear what exactly happened in between, but rumors are circulating that the place is unclean, haunted by something sinister. Now, even specialized departments have stepped in to take over. Someone captured footage of a person in a Taoist robe entering an abandoned house with a compass. I wasn't concerned about the Qin family's affairs until I saw a familiar gourd pendant in the various photos circulating online. I stared for a long time, not even noticing when someone approached, until my advisor spoke up. "What are you looking at so intently?" I looked up. "Professor, I'd like to request leave." I contacted Qin Huaishua, saying I wanted to go take a look at that piece of land. He had clearly been quite troubled by this matter recently, and he couldn't hide his surprise when he heard I wanted to go see it. "What are you going there for? Don't come and make things worse." That area of land had already been cordoned off with police tape, and all the entrances and exits were guarded. Without someone to accompany me, I couldn't get in. By the time I arrived, I still saw Qin Huaishua waiting by the roadside. It had been a while since we last met, and he looked much more haggard. "He still doesn't understand why I came here. Miaodong, this isn't a fun place to be. The rumors online didn't come out of nowhere. You'd better not go in." In my eyes, I only see that old, fragile house, something urging me to step forward, some confusions I've never been able to resolve. The answers seem right before my eyes. When we entered, we saw SWAT officers and an elderly man in Taoist robes. The SWAT officers were even equipped with weapons resembling guns, and the Taoist-robed elder looked grave. Upon seeing us enter, their first reaction was to ask us to leave. It wasn't until I locked eyes with the Taoist-robed elder that, after a long moment, he seemed to sigh. "So it's a destined encounter." I couldn't understand his words, but the few of us were allowed to stay, and the people in tactical gear, similar to SWAT officers, standing beside the old man in Taoist robes, no longer drove us away. I don't know which department they're from, but they seem to be official staff and very serious. I walk through this dilapidated house, and with each step I take up the stairs, I feel the weight of history. As early as high school, I had inquired about my hometown and visited it. My former residence had long been reduced to ruins in the war and was later rebuilt after the conflict. This place is not anywhere I remember, but now, in the dusty side room on the second floor, the dull, dusty gourd pendant hanging by the bed reminds me of someone. I have never been here before, but perhaps he has. I approached and heard someone whispering below, seemingly trying to stop me from entering that room. I faintly caught the words, "the most intense energy." It's still daytime, but it's so dark here that you can't see the sky. In the corner, there is a wooden table, worn and dilapidated from years of neglect. Looking at this scene, I can almost imagine, many years ago, a young man in Western-style trousers and a shirt bending over the desk. The air is filled with the smell of mold. I slowly approach the bedside and reach out toward the gourd pendant by the head of the bed. At that moment, a gentle breeze suddenly stirs in the air, and I touch the pendant. It was just a very inconspicuous peachwood pendant. The red string that held it together had completely faded over the years, and the cord was so fragile that it couldn't withstand even the slightest tug. With just a gentle touch, it snapped. The original speculation seemed about to be revealed. My hand trembled slightly as I held the gourd pendant and looked down. Using the flashlight on my phone, I saw faint, blurry carvings at the bottom, so blurry that I could barely make them out, but I still recognized it. the three characters above were Qin Miaodong. The year we parted, we exchanged gifts. This is the one I gave away. The one I received was later buried with me in an unknown place. Tears slipped down at some point, blurring my vision, and my long silent heart grew scalding hot. I heard a sound in my ear, like footsteps, yet accompanied by the sound of breathing. Clutching the gourd pendant in my hand, I slowly turned to look. In this dimly lit room, I saw another tall, slender shadow. At that moment, the door seemed to be pushed shut by the wind. My breath stopped for a moment. I stood motionless, staring at that figure. Is that you, Ah Su? I wanted to see that face clearly, so I took a step forward, but the figure retreated a step back. Ah Su? I halted my steps. Let me see you. Okay. He stopped, and I moved forward, seeing the wound on his neck in the dim light, a slashed throat. My tears fell once again. Looking up, the face that had once been so distant I could barely remember it now appeared before me once more. He was my Su. I wanted to reach out and touch him, but as my hand stretched forward, it only met a wisp of air. Sorrow washed over me, and the delayed grief made me unable to hold back my sobs. My Su, how long has he been trapped here? Miaodong, don't cry. After a long while, I heard a voice speak, a voice from another lifetime. My vision blurred with tears once more, but I wanted to see him clearly, so I reached out to wipe my eyes. When I looked up again, I saw his hand, extended and then withdrawn. Just as I cannot reach him, he cannot reach me either. I looked up and finally saw that face clearly. He looked no different from how I remembered him, with delicate features that still appeared gentle and refined, yet my sorrow was unmistakably evident. Ah Su, tell me about yourself, will you? I wanted to know about his experiences and what he had been through, why he was trapped here, and even more, why I had awakened in this era. A faint sadness flickered in Ah Su's eyes. Miao Tong. I don't remember. He had been confined to this house for many years, until recently when the Qin family started construction. Ah Su said he only remembered that he was waiting for someone, and it wasn't until he saw me that he realized the person he was waiting for was me. He wanted to see me one more time. I stared intently at Ah Su, afraid that if I blinked, he would disappear from my sight. I never thought I would see an old friend again in this lifetime. I never assumed that Ah Su was still alive, but I often imagined that after my death, he would meet someone wonderful once the war ended, and his descendants would live on this land just as I do now. But he died in that era, just like I did. He remained here alone for many years. Miao Tong, I'm leaving, Ah Su suddenly said. I looked at him, tears falling uncontrollably once again. Miao Tong, you must be happy. I watched his figure gradually become blurry. I reached out my hand, but my palm could grasp nothing. He slipped through my fingers like flowing sand. This room is dim and sunless, but my Aksu is no longer here. All that remains in my palm is a gourd pendant, weathered and worn by the passage of time, as if what I had just seen was merely an illusion of mine. The old man in the Taoist robe told me that Su had been too deeply attached in life, and before his death, he had made a final wish. He carried merit with him, and his attachment brought me here. It was also this attachment that kept him holding on for so many years. He wanted to see me one more time. This was also the reason why strange occurrences frequently happened in this area when construction began. Perhaps Ah Su might cause greater harm to others, which is the reason this place was shut down and taken over by the government. If I hadn't shown up, it would have remained closed indefinitely. The old man in the Taoist robe said that Ah Su has a golden aura around him, and according to the rules, they cannot take action against a soul that carries great merit. He told me with a smile that I also have a golden aura, a convergence of my past and present lives. I don't care about any of this. Where did Ah Su go? I asked him. When a person dies, they enter the cycle of reincarnation. Lingering in the mortal world is akin to weaving a cocoon around oneself. His obsessions have dissipated, and he will embrace a new life. I don't know what he means by new life, but I sincerely pray that Ah Su has a peaceful and smooth next life. The ban on this land has been lifted, and construction can proceed. The urgent crisis of the Qin family has been resolved. Although Qin Huaishua didn't understand the situation, he was there with me that day. He watched me go upstairs and then saw me come down, utterly dejected. He seemed to want to ask something, but he also knew he wouldn't get an answer from me. That day, I only took a gourd pendant from that room. This house was once where Ah Su lived, but after so many years, it has changed hands many times. Now, the only thing that still belongs to him is the pendant I once gave him. I had long known that our connection was severed, yet when he appeared before me and vanished again, I still felt a sense of loss. The gourd pendant in my hand seemed to remind me that the thread linking me to that era of raging flames had already been broken. The Qin Miaodong of today is simply Qin Miaodong, at the age of 28. I graduated with a Ph.D. and officially joined a research institute. I don't have much of a social life, spending my days in the lab. The Qin family initially contacted me, saying that there are no parents in the world who are not right, but after all, I am not the daughter they wanted, and they are not the parents I wanted. I don't have high demands for material life. My work can satisfy my pursuit of life. But my boss often makes a fuss, insisting that I have officers accompany me when I go out. The Qin family must have realized later that as long as I didn't want to see them, there was no way they could appear before me. They have no idea where I am right now. The fate of a political marriage could never possibly fall upon me. For many years after that, I lived alone, learning bits and pieces about the Qin family from others. Qin Yi gradually stepped down, and Qin Huaishua took over the Qin group. However, in this rapidly changing era, competitors of the Qin group emerged one after another. Even if Qin Huaishua is some kind of business prodigy, it is difficult to fight against the tide of the times. The Qin group is declining, albeit at a relatively slow pace. As for Qin Siyu, she gave birth to a child, but I heard that he Fan is not a good man. Some men are like fermented wine. They may look fine, but once you get a whiff, you realize they have already gone bad. They had a passionate romance, but over the years, they ended up wearing each other down. However, this is just my perspective. After all, what I seek differs from what Qin Siyu desires. The life she leads now is not much different from what she described to me when she stood at the foot of the steps in her teens. Her material life remains an endpoint that many cannot reach. Later, when one of my research findings was published, Qin Yi seized that opportunity to reveal my identity. During that period, they contacted me frequently, hoping I would return to attend Qin Ye's birthday celebration. Clearly, Qin Siyu has become the pawn abandoned in this farce. After weighing the options, or perhaps realizing during the previous crisis at the Qin group, Qin Yi understood that if he wanted to expand his connections in the political sphere, a daughter engaged in scientific research would be an excellent stepping stone. I received a belated message from Qin Siyu, filled with resentment and unwillingness. You win. Unfortunately, Qin Yi didn't know that my unpublished research achievements meant I was never someone he, as my biological father, could control. I blocked him directly. He was an eyesore. Later, whatever Qin Huaishua wanted to say, as soon as he opened his mouth, it wasn't something I wanted to hear. I sent both him and his father straight to the blacklist. I was so engrossed in my work that even my boss and colleagues started worrying about my personal life. I can only tell them that my heart is devoted solely to research, and I have already decided to dedicate my life to it. Over the years, I have met many outstanding men. They were wonderful, but it's hard for my heart to flutter again in this lifetime. That Taoist-robed elder once told me, my present life is my next life. Thus I can integrate the memories of Qin Miaodong, feeling what she feels, though the memories from my past life are also merged. It took me a long time to regain a sense of belonging to this era. In my spare time, I occasionally buy flowers to keep at home. I'd like to have a pet, but I'm too busy and worry I wouldn't be able to take care of it properly. Later on, I started taking on students myself, looking at their faces, untouched by hardship. I couldn't help but feel a bit nostalgic for my younger self. I'm not stern, but I am meticulous. My dear students have endured quite a bit under my guidance, but they are all outstanding young people. I stood at the podium, beginning to explain the theoretical knowledge, with the 5-star red flag hanging above and behind me. We are all telling the story of this generation. Extra chapter, Zhou Su's perspective. I met Miaodong in my childhood, and her father once taught me how to write. Miaodong has been a woman of strong opinions since childhood, beautiful not only in appearance. We grew up together, witnessing the nation in distress and the people suffering, feeling unwilling yet powerless. Her father donated a great deal of family property, but it still wasn't enough. My parents later went north to do business, supplying food to the military. She said she wanted to study abroad, to see what the scenery was like in other countries. At that time, danger was everywhere. And my parents made the decision to send both her and me away. When we first discovered love, we also secretly kissed on summer nights, just like others did. She was like a beam of light in my life. I couldn't help but draw closer to her, to fall in love with her. She was that wonderful. Later, we returned to our homeland after overcoming numerous difficulties. We pledged to spend our lives together. However, with the outbreak of war, even though we were on the same side, we had to endure a brief separation. I was exposed during an operation to cover the retreat of civilians. Death was so close to me. Before losing consciousness, I prayed that my Myeodong would see a country free from war in the future. Someone as wonderful as her would have other admirers. She would meet someone better. If I have any regrets, it's probably that I haven't seen her in so long. I really wish I could see her again. The end.